This is Kahu Shad Kane. He's a cultural historian, very knowledgeable in Kapolei history and Kalaiwa. So he came to share a little bit of the history, his research, his studies, his archaeological discoveries and all that. And he does have a book called Cultural Kapolei. Okay, so he's going to share. So you want them to ask questions, or you want to do a presentation?
No, and you can ask questions anytime you want. I suggest that if you have a question, you ask at that point that you have that question. Okay? That's all. Okay, thank you. Okay, I should start off by sharing a couple of things. I just had a surgery about 3 weeks ago. And I had a pacemaker installed in my heart, just so that you know. It's okay. You know, I actually thought this was going to be what big cut, but it wasn't. It was really small, so it wasn't that bad. But I just wanted to let you know that the only bad thing about it is that I got to use a cane to walk around because I'm kind of a little bit unstable. Okay? So if you see me kind of fall, grab hold of me so I don't fall off. But okay, let me start this way. What I want to be able to do today is that I want to give you folks a sense of all the ancient Hawaiian names for this whole region before sugar came, before sugar and pineapple. So you got to have a little understanding about what had happened prior to sugar. I don't want to spend too much time on that, so I want to try to get through that as quickly as I can. But it's important, understanding what happened prior to sugar is important to understand what's on this map, okay? This is actually a modern map of Kapolei with all the ancient Hawaiian names prior to sugar and pineapple, okay? Let me start this way. Originally, those people that came to Hawaii were from Massachusetts, okay? And what happened is that during the Civil War, the northern states did not get along with the southern states. So what happened was, the southern states refused to sell sugar to the northern states. So, you know how people are accustomed to sugar? Even back then, sugar was very important. So what happened as a result of that is that because the North and the South didn't get along because of sugar, so the South refused to sell sugar to the northern states. So those people in Hawaii were from the northern states, Massachusetts. So they were aware of this place in Hawaii. And they were aware of the farmland that we had here. So what occurred is that when they originally moved to the Hawaiian Islands, the original plan was to farm. So they populated both the Hawaiian Islands, the Big Island, and Maui. So the whole plan was to farm. What's that?
We're filming you.
Oh, the microphone.
Yeah. So, Larry, right there, inside like that?
So their whole plan was actually, but coming to Hawaii, originally their plan was to farm. And they ended up on the Hawaii Island and eventually went to Maui. To speed things up, what happened is that they found out that the best farmland was actually on Oahu. And the best farmland they found out was between the Ko'olau Mountains and the Waianae Mountains. All of Ewa, okay? So this entire area. So prior to this, what happened is that Kauai Kea'uli, Kamehameha III, he realized in the short amount of time that Westerners moved to the Hawaiian Islands, he realized that he lost much knowledge regarding the history. So what he decided to do, he commissioned several people, and one example is Sam Kamakau, to find out what the history was, okay? So what Kamakau did is that he went out to all the islands, but we're speaking today primarily about the island of Oahu. So what he did was that he went out into the entire area of Ewa, all the way from Kalihi, all the way to Wahiwa, all the way to the North Shore, Wailua, and to Waianae. And what he did is that he asked Sam to speak to people that were here prior to 1778, prior to Captain Cook. So he learned the history of this entire area, and he published newspaper articles. So all of that information was published. Kamehameha V, Kapuaiwa, this is a time in the 1890s up to 1900 when they were struggling to save Hawaiian culture. The history of these islands was getting lost. So during this period of time, just try to speed things up. During this period of time was when Liliuokalani was the queen, of course, and that she was removed by 1889, the latter part of the 1800s. She was removed. What came of that is that those people originally from the United States, those people tried to get a democracy established here in the Hawaiian Islands. Because when Cook arrived in 1778, there were, he estimated 900,000 people at that time. By the 1890s, there were only around 400,000 people, okay? So when they overthrew the queen, the whole idea behind that was to establish a democracy. And what occurred was, when they were able to do that, they removed everybody that was in the area we refer to as Ewa. So all the way from Kalihi to the North Shore, Waiwa, all the way to Waianae. They were all removed from these islands. By that time, the entire history of this place was lost. So they were able to establish a democracy. What they did is that they kicked out everybody who lived in this area, and they were able to establish a democracy. So that led to the loss of all the ancient Hawaiian names, the names we're going to go talk about today. So I want to be able to get to that real quickly. So I wanted to help you understand how we got to that. So the names I'm going to share with you were known prior to sugar, but it was lost when sugar got established in this entire area. So that's what I'm going to be spending most of my time talking about, is that the ancient Hawaiian names prior to agriculture in this area. Most of us think of agriculture as a good thing. Yes, it was a good thing. But the sad aspect to that is that everybody who lived in this area lost their lands. So that's where I am right now. So before I get to these names, I wanted to ask if any one of you had any questions at this point. Yeah.
My question is, who got the land? Was it the state that got it, or was it Crown lands, or like after they booted us all off, then who got to have it? Was it sold to the people from Massachusetts?
It went to, specifically, it went to Cook, for one, and Stanford Dole. So these are the people we're familiar with, okay? So they were the ones that worked with others. They were not the only ones now, okay? They worked with others to establish a democracy. Democracy is not a bad deal, okay? But it's important to understand what happened. Hawaiians did not know what a democracy was.
Now, when you say democracy, in whose interpretation is that democracy? Is it their interpretation? Is it American democracy? Because the Hawaiians were just fine. It's the Riflemen's Association that did the overthrow of our queen, and they said, oh, we're doing it in the face of democracy. For whom? Who benefited? Not us.
That's right. In the newspaper articles written by Sam Kamakau regarding the displacement of everybody in this area, Hawaiians had no idea what democracy was.
Yeah.
They were comfortable
Yeah.
living the life that they were living.
Yeah.
You know, most of us, when you think of a dynasty, or when you think of what they had prior to that, you know, the king and queen made the decisions, but the decisions that they were made was always to the benefit of people. It's different today as compared to how it was back then. Democracy, in terms of ever, was a bad thing. Hawaiians did not make the decisions. The decisions was made by others. And it resulted in losing all the names we're going to talk about and the displacement of everybody in this area. If they refused to move out, they were killed. It's that simple, okay? So sugar and pineapple, when they took over, if anybody disagreed, they were in trouble, okay? So that was the situation. Okay, by the 1970s, 1980s, here in Hawaii, no one knew the ancient names for this region. But what was happening was with the establishing one new city. I better go slow on this. I don't want to lose you folks. So when the discussion resulted in populating this area, and they were going to shut down all of sugar, the discussion had to do with place names. And that was in the that was actually in the 40s and 50s. But they wanted the place names to be the original names for this region. So at that time, the Kapolei Hawaiian Civic Club had their meetings at the Campbell Estate building. So when Campbell Estate was making decisions regarding building one new city, the first thing they wanted to decide was what they're going to name this new city. Okay? I hope I'm not going too fast. So when that decision was made, with the assistance of the Kapolei Hawaiian Civic Club, prior to this whole discussion in building one new city, keep in mind now, this was off sugar, okay? So the decision was to start piecemeal. Campbell Estate, based on newspaper articles from Sam Kamakau and others, they found out that the center of ancient Hawaiian culture in this region was Pu'u'o Kapolei. Pu'u'o Kapolei had the largest heiau, so there was a lot of significance to it, okay? But before I get to that led to discussions by Campbell regarding considering naming this new city, Kapolei. What they did is they hired Rubelai Johnson from Campbell Estate, from University of Hawaii, to do research, okay? And she was the one that did a really thick research of this entire area, and that's much of what I have here that we're going to talk about real quickly. And that discussion took place with Campbell Estate. Campbell Estate owned all these lands here. So that discussion between Rubelai Johnson and Campbell Estate resulted in creating this new city, starting it at Pu'u'o Kapolei. The only homes in this area was Makakilo. There was a Makakilo here already, and Honokai Hale, okay? So you got homes in Makakilo, you got homes in Honokai Hale. So the discussion now, deciding on the center, which is the park, where Pu'ukapolei Regional Park, where the police department was. I was involved, myself and another captain were the two people that actually helped build the Kapolei Hawaiian Civic Club. I mean, build the police station, okay? So anyway, real quickly, just to get started on this right here. That's how this whole thing started. So it started with the building of the business district below Makakilo, the park, the regional park, and building the homes along Coral Sea Road on the left. I think that's Kumuhale, that first subdivision. Yeah, the first subdivision. That's how it started, okay? Okay, I want to get to these names in the time we have. I don't want to keep you guys till to 8, 9 o'clock. So let me get started on these names right away, and I want to be able to share. I want to be able to share all of that. Okay. Got 3 maps here. That map is all of Ewa and all of the Honolulu side. This map is primarily of Ewa. This map in the center is a Campbell Estate map, and we're going to spend most of my time talking about this map in the center. Can you guys hear me in the back? You can hear in the back? Okay. Okay. Let's start with the first thing is this entire area anciently was underwater, okay? This whole area is an ancient Hawaiian reef. Where we are right here was 60 feet underwater. The water went all the way to the H1 freeway, okay? So this whole area is an ancient coral reef. The main thing you gotta understand regarding what we're gonna talk about. It's an ancient coral reef. There are no rivers in this area. All the water traveled underground, okay? And they made its appearance in sinkholes, okay? So that's big. See, water is the most important thing. So that's how this whole area came to be developed as a result of water flowing on the ground. The first place I want to start sharing with you Campbell decided to start this new city at Pu'u'okapule. Okay? Pu'u'okapule is, are you folks familiar where it's located? In that direction. Okay? That became the center of this new city. When it was developed, surrounding that became the business district. The banks, the shopping centers. Then outside of that, the plan was to build homes. So all the homes were built outside of that. The major shopping centers, Kanehili, and others, there's going to be a few others. You know, all this vacant land you folks see in this direction. There's a lot of vacant lands. There's going to be several other big shopping centers. So that's the basic plan. So that's the basic plan behind how this whole thing, this whole city is going to be built. We're going to talk about, the first thing I'm going to share with you is Pu'u'okapule. Anciently, the significance of Pu'u'okapule and why Campbell Estate decided they decided to establish Pu'u'okapule as the center of this new city. Anciently, it was the largest heiau on the island of Oahu now. The largest heiau on the island of Oahu was at Pu'u'okapule. So if you ever have a chance to get permission from the archers that's there and have a chance to walk around, a lot of the structures are still intact there to give you a sense of the size of this particular heiau. Portions of the wall are actually outside of the Archie Range. Between the Archie Range and Kapolei Regional Park, sections of the wall run from where the parking lot is, Pu'u'okapule parking lot. There's actually the wall that continues on that side, and it goes all the way down to, what's the name of that road? Anyway, down to the next road, okay? So the largest heiau was located at Pu'u'okapule. Anciently, it also served as a marker for the change of seasons. So in other words, okay, we're talking about now, I don't want to lose, I want to make sure I stay where I want to be. Pu'u'okapule. It, Kamau Nuaniho, who was the grandmother of Kamapua'a, lived there. Her house site is still there. As you're driving on Carl C. Road, and you're driving in the ocean direction from Pu'u'okapule, on the Makai most end of Pu'u'okapule, behind the fence, that whole area is fenced in now. You know when you take a look at it, as you're driving by, that whole area is fenced in. When you get to the eastmost corner, her house is still in there. You can actually see it. If you park your car on the corner of Carl C. Road and that first street, I can't remember the name. There's that first street right there. If you park right there and get out of your car and walk up to the fence and look inside, you can actually see the foundation for her house site. It's still intact, so it's still in there. Her burial was beneath the highway today, so it's gone today, okay? But main thing to keep in mind is that her house site is still there. The problem is now is that because there's arches there, it doesn't have the kind of support most archaeological sites have elsewhere because it's an archery range. So what we do is we routinely go there and just talk to them and share the history with the archers so that they're aware. It's not just an archery range. It's an ancient Hawaiian heiau. So we share that with them. Yeah.
Who owns the archery range?
What's that?
Who owns the archery range?
Who owns it? It
Yeah.
belongs to the state. So they're leasing it. They're leasing it.
And what is the name of the heiau?
The name of the heiau,
Yeah.
Pu'u'okapule heiau.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the name. That's the name that's recorded in the newspaper. What I'm sharing with you folks is actually information from Sam Kamakau. You know, when Sam Kamakau went out and did talked to people and wrote newspaper articles, all those newspaper articles are microfilm at the Department of Land and Natural Resources. So all this information here is supported by microfilm at Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Do we know what kinds of heiau it is?
What's that?
What kinds of heiau?
What kind?
What kind?
Sacrificial. Oh, it was a serious one.
It was a lahini.
Yes, yeah. Named after Kapo, okay? Kapole. So it was a sacrificial heiau anciently, okay? So over a period of time, it lost that sense. But in the ancient documents, it identifies it as a sacrificial heiau, okay? It served as a marker for the change of seasons. So, in other words, if you're standing on Pu'ukapule and you look east, you see a diamond. That's a leahi, diamond head, okay? If you stand at Diamond Head or Kapiolani Park and you're looking west, you see another diamond. But the peak, Diamond Head, the peak, hope I'm not confusing you, the peak is facing in the ocean direction. When you're looking from Waikiki and looking in this direction, what resembles Diamond Head is Pu'upalailai. Pu'upalailai is in the shape of Diamond Head. However, the peak is actually on the Mauka side, okay? The reason I'm sharing that with you, it plays a significance in why this Pu'ukapule served as one heiau. That played a part in that because its relationship to Diamond Head, okay? So it served as a marker for the seasons. And when I share that with you, basically what it means is that when Sam Kamakau went out into the countryside and talked to people about this place over here, Sam Kamakau had the Western education. So he found out that Pu'ukapule served as a calendar, a marker for the seasons, okay? So in the conversations that he had, based on newspaper articles now, conversations that he had regarding getting more information on Pu'ukapule, he referred to that as a calendar. He made reference to the months, and he made reference to the time of the year, spring, summer, and winter. They told him no. They told him that there's not 4 seasons. There's not winter, spring, summer, fall. He said they told him there's only 2. There's when the sun was in the north and when the sun was in the south. So they wanted to make that clear to him. And it was identified when the sun set behind Pu'upalailai. And that's the significance of what I just shared with you from Waikiki. From Waikiki, when you're looking in this direction, from the area of the Opunahakuahu. Opunahakuahu was associated with Kanehili heiau in Kapiolani Park, just adjacent to the natatorium. As you're looking in this direction, you see another diamond, Pu'upalailai. Pu'ukapule is, you can't see it, but it's in that alignment, okay? I'm just sharing you the significance of Pu'uk, the reason why Pu'u'okapule became the center, not just the building of this new city, but it was the center of their culture in ancient Hawaiian culture. Okay? The next thing I wanted to share with you, Pu'u'okapule, if we're walking in the Makai direction, the first place you're going to come to is Kaupea. This is Kaupea right here. So Kaupea is between Pu'u'okapule and Barbers Point Naval Air Station. Okay, that's Kaupea. Kaupea makes reference to, there's several meanings to it. Kaupea makes reference to, so I want to make sure that I kind of keep you folks, just keep in mind of where this whole thing is associated. Pu'u'okapule, you're going straightly in the Makai direction, you hit Kaupea, you hit Kanehili, and then you go to Kualakai. So what's important to understand, it's making reference to two very important issues. One is, Kaupea makes reference to the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross is in the direction of Ko'olina from where we are right now, okay? The significance of that with respect to Kaupea, it's making reference to a place of departure. In ancient Hawaiian culture, Ko'olina was identified as that place, okay? So in other words, when they came from, originally there was actually an ahu out at Ko'olina, but in the construction of Ko'olina, that ahu was lost. That ahu actually identified the direction they would travel in ancient Hawaiian culture if they wanted to return to, so it's making reference to the Southern Cross. They're making reference to the Southern Cross, and it's in the direction, it's a 5-star constellation. And it was identified by what ahu that's no longer there in the area where Ko'olina is today. So Kaupea is making reference to that constellation. It's making reference to that. If you lived a good life in ancient Hawaiian culture, you would have the benefit of being carried to the Leina Ka'uhane. The Leina Ka'uhane is at Ka'ena Point. The Leina Ka'uhane is a leaping place into afterlife. If you lived a good life, we're talking about Kaupea now. If you lived a good life, you would be carried by your aumakua to Ka'ena Point, to Leina Ka'uhane. The stone is still there today. It's a big, huge stone. You would be carried out onto the stone and you would be lifted up, okay? After you pass away, okay? If you did not live a good life, you would not have the benefit of being carried to the Leina Ka'uhane. You would be sent to a place referred to as Kaupea. Kaupea is this entire area, Kaupea, okay? If, for example, your grandmother did not live a good life, she would not have the benefit of being carried after life, carried to Kaena Point. Okay? She would be sent to this place here. So it's referred to as an auku'ewa. That auku'ewa is a place if you're not good enough to be carried to Kaena Point and lifted up into eternal life. Okay? Oh, I hope I'm not confusing everybody. We're talking about this area right here, Kaupea, okay? In ancient Hawaiian culture, it's also referred to as a place of wandering spirits. If you did not live a good life, to be carried to Ka'ena Point and lifted up into eternal life, you would be banned to live in this particular area, okay? So so it's also referred to, not just with respect to finding a way back home, the 5 stars, it's also a place where you would have to find another way to cleanse yourself, to find a way up into eternal life. Okay? So there's several different ways now. The first way is you need to, the first one I just shared with you regarding your grandmother. If your grandmother did not live a good life, she would not have the benefit of leaving. So she would have to find a way to make herself better, to find a way to get to a better place. Okay? The other one is a story. Now, the thing I struggle with stories, well, not so much me, but I know almost everybody I share stories with, we all have a hard time with stories. Okay? They did not have a written history. So everything is passed from generation to generation. So you don't know how much of it is factual, okay? So and much of what I share with you is actually stories, okay? But these are stories that are shared and documented by Sam Kamakau when he went out and talked to everybody. And the story had to do with the first way is your grandmother got to find a way to purify herself. That's one, okay? I'll leave it at that now, okay? The other way is that you need to find a way to the Leina Ka'uhane. The Leina Ka'uhane is a place simply put, by Alia Manu. So you got to find your way from where Pu'u Okapale along what is considered Farrington Highway, okay? Keep in mind now, Farrington Highway was an old walking trail, okay? It's a road today. Anciently, it was a walking trail that connected people with Honolulu to Waianae, okay? So the story is that you would have to find your way to the Leina Ka'uhane at Ka'ena Point. At Aliamanu, okay? So that so you would find your way along Farrington Highway, Cam Highway, all the way to Aliamanu, okay? At Aliamanu, in very simple terms, there was a hole there. There was a hole in the ground. There was a giant caterpillar protecting that, watching that hole on the eastern side. And then there was there was a caterpillar on one side, and there was a mo'o on the other side, a giant lizard, okay, on the western side. And this hole in the ground, which is what you needed to seek to find your way into a better life, there was an ulu tree. What you would have to do is that you have to make a decision. You would have to step next to the hole and look at them, and you have to jump into the hole, okay? The ulu tree, you gotta find the right branch. And if the branch flicks you up out of the hole, you live forever, okay? If you pick the wrong branch, it snaps, and you're gone forever, okay? So we're talking about the trail now, okay? We're talking about the trail, afterlife when you die, in the area we refer to as kaupea, okay? So that's what we're sharing. The next thing is Kanehili. When Micah Kane was here a while back, Micah is my cousin. So he talked to me a lot because he was involved in Hawaiian culture. So he needed to he needed to name different subdivisions that he was involved in constructing. One, of course, was Kaupea. So I suggested he name 2 properties. Kanehili, where you folks are living, and the other one was Kaupea, okay? So he wanted to name the highway, Kapolei Parkway, and he wanted to name these 2 subdivisions, the one that you live in today as Kaupea, and the one that's across the street, Kanehili, and the one that's across the street at Kaupea. He couldn't give the name Kanehili to Kalaeloa, which is the proper name for Kalaeloa, okay? I can't remember the reason. So he ended up naming your subdivision Kanehili, as opposed to the true location, which is Barber's Point, okay? Kanehili anciently was Barber's Point, okay? Kalaeloa, okay? Kaupea anciently was this area we're in. So the name Kaupea today is actually across the street, yeah. And then Kanehili today is this side, okay? Just to give you a sense of that particular name. So that's Kanehili. Kualaka'i is along the shoreline, and it extends in the western direction and the eastern direction and into the airport. Today, it is the Kalaeloa Heritage Park. I don't know how many of you have ever been to the Kalaeloa Heritage Park, but it took on the name of the Kalaeloa Heritage Park. There's actually a trail there. Now, this is a very lengthy story, but I'm not gonna, I don't want to get that far deep into it. But basically, what this trail is called the Kualaka'i Trail. It goes to this location, okay? The name Kualaka'i makes reference to the, in ancient Hawaiian culture, after several generations living here, they didn't know where they came from. The original ancestors traveled from the southern latitudes up to this latitude. And in several generations, their children lost track of that history, so they had no idea where they came from. Kualaka'i makes reference to that. The breadfruit tree of Kaha'i. It's making reference to Ku, the breadfruit tree of Kaha'i. Kualaka'i. So there's a trail there. And that trail extended all the way through the Heritage Park to the ocean, all the way up to it passed. See, where are we right here? Okay, the trail went all the way to Kalo'i Gulch, but Kalo'i Gulch connects with this trail, okay? So Kalo'i Gulch, if you keep walking in the Makai direction, it connects with this road, Kapolei Parkway, not Kapolei Parkway, where the train stations are located. What's the name of that road? You guys?
Roosevelt.
Which one?
Roosevelt.
Yeah. So it connects with that. That's all part of the ancient Hawaiian trail. Kualaka'i Trail that we're talking about, the Maikakane now, okay, connects with that trail, goes behind Makakilo Pu'u, Kalo'i Gulch, and it goes all the way up to the top of Palehua. So it's an ancient Hawaiian trail. It's a real trail we're talking about now, okay? What I'm sharing with you is a real trail that extended all the way from the ocean, Kualaka'i, extended through the Heritage Park. It followed this road and went all the way up to the top of the mountain. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that heritage.
I know I'm having a hard time.
Where is it located?
What's that?
That heritage park that you're talking about, where is it located?
It's in Kalaeloa. So
Is it still existing now? Like,
yeah,
able to-
yeah. It's I don't know how many of you folks been there. The Heritage Park is on Coral Sea Road.
Is it the one, let me
if you're going to go to the beach at White Plains Beach,
Yes,
you gotta get onto Coral Sea Road.
yes.
Coral Sea Road passes the airport on the right-hand side. And if you keep going, you'll find your way. The Heritage Park that is on the right-hand side, the left-hand side of Coral Sea Road, after you pass the airport, you're going to come to the Kalailo Ranch, and you can see the cattle. Right across the street is the Heritage Park.
It's still there.
Again, the significance of the park. How best to say this, man? I guess that's the only way. The significance of that is that the name, the breadfruit tree of Kaha'i, is making reference to the fact that the breadfruit tree of Kaha'i is making reference to the fact that the people who were living during that time, we don't know the exact time, okay? They struggled with who they were. They didn't know where they came from, okay? We don't have that problem, us. We know all that. But in ancient Hawaiian culture, they struggled. They were trying to find out, who am I? Who the heck is this guy standing here in front of you? Okay? Think about that. If you did not know that, if you did not have an understanding of who you were, where you came from, that's a struggle, okay?
I think we as Hawaiians right now struggle with that. Who are we and where are we? I think that we struggle with it right now. As
Yeah,
Hawaiians.
yeah.
Like we're
It
the
is.
space.
It's,
So, Uncle,
it's
sorry
important.
to interrupt. Were they Hawaiians or were they not Hawaiians? They were just Polynesians? The ones that lived there, were they Hawaiians?
Oh,
or
Tahitians.
they were
We're
Tahitians?
talking about Tahitians, okay? Sorry, gang. We're talking about Tahitians, so we're talking about a time in the beginning, okay? So they identified themselves as, well, they didn't identify themselves as Tahitians. They identified as coming from somewhere else, okay? The Sam Kamakau, in newspaper articles, he's calling them Tahitians based on several. For us, the most important thing is the construction of all the Hawaiian sites. They're not Hawaiian. The sites in Kalai are all Tahitians. Tahitian structures, house sites, heiaus, the stones all stand up. Hawaiians, they lay them flat, okay? So the structures in Kalaeloa is, and I'm making reference only to Kalaeloa. In other areas of the former Barbers Point where there's all Keawe bush, there's structures in there too. They're all built in a Tahitian manner.
So, Uncle,
Everybody with me?
yes. That's good stuff, Uncle.
So, you know, it's good to have these kinds of understanding because during this period, the time we're talking about, because even today, there's people today that struggle, you know, that sense of identity. You know that? That is so important. Who you are.
I live in Ka'ulu Kaha'i.
Yeah.
And so are you saying that the trail starts from there, from Makakilo, or ends there?
Well, we make reference to it starting there simply because of the manner in which the structures are built. The period we're talking about was the Tahitian period. All the structures in Barbers Point are not Hawaiian. They're all built in a Tahitian manner. Why is that? It's a former military base. When they went and put up all the fences, nobody could go in there and damage anything. So everything is protected. Every place else where they were, because there were Hawaiian village all the way around the Hawaiian Islands, where there's houses, beaches, everything's gone. Kaneohe, Kailua, Ha'ula, everything's gone. Because Kalaeloa is a former military base, everything is still there. The Navy did not build all over. What the Navy did is they would use Keawe forests to conceal certain areas, such as the Kalaeloa Heritage Park. Okay? So that's why we have an authentic Tahitian village in Kalaeloa. And it's all upright stones. The house sites standing up, the heiaus, the stones are standing up. The water features, stones are standing up.
Is it accessible to the public?
What's that?
Is it accessible to the public or is it restricted?
The park. Oh, it's open to everybody. I was just there today. All you got to do is go to your computer, Kalaeloa Heritage Park, and it will give you all the information. Just go to Kalaeloa Heritage Park or Kalaeloa Heritage and Legacy Foundation.
Wasn't there a major fighting site there in Eva during World War II?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a major battle in
Yeah.
that area? So that could have wiped out a lot of the sites as well?
In this particular area, see, World War II was in the 30s, 40s, 30s and 40s was World War II. This area was not affected. The base was built. The fence line was built in 1930. It was built in the 1923. So the whole area of Kalaeloa Heritage Park was protected. Yeah. So that's why we have all these Tahitian structures.
Uncle, I appreciate you being here this evening.
Yeah.
Because I'm learning many new things, and that's one of them. And I wanted to know, because you just said it's open to the public.
Yeah.
Is there tours over there that people like me can go and see? I just
Oh,
pulled it up
absolutely.
on the map, and I'm like, I want to go now.
You
I
can
wanna
call
go and
me.
see. Oh, and I can call you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
No, the park is open, and we've actually
Sister, I'm not like, what you
we've been having visitors visit the park since 2011. So the park has been open since 2011. Since 2011. So you can either go to the computer, Kalaeloa Heritage Park, and all the information will pop up. So when you want to come and visit the park, there's a email. You got to contact our board and to schedule a day, especially if you're going to come with a big group. That's all you got to do. I'm surprised you folks never heard about it.
I'm pretty sure a lot of us is not aware of it.
Yeah,
That's why we're here.
I'm surprised. Yeah,
When Michael Kami went into that area
Yeah.
in Kanehili,
yeah.
is that where they were going to build the houses before they discovered the sinkholes?
Initially, yes, but not anymore. Yeah, once they found out that the Heritage Park had all these, what it was is that there were others that that were involved in doing the survey. I wasn't involved, okay? That was prior to us getting involved. And when they discovered all these ancient Tahitian, that's what made the difference now. If it was Hawaiian, it would not have been a big deal. But because they all built in a Tahitian fashion, that created this whole preservation issue.
Why is it that if it's Hawaiian, it's not a big deal? But if it's Tahitian or any other, I don't care what.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it is a big deal. Why? I am Hawaiian. I don't know why they look at me and the rest of us Hawaiians as if it was Hawaiian, no big deal. What? Step on it, stomp on it, move it, remove what?
No,
Why?
because the reason why it's important to identify him as the Tahitian, nobody lived inland. Nobody lived inland now. The first people to come here settled in West Loch. They went inside Pearl Harbor, and they went settled in West Loch. So the area where the hospital is today, the golf course, that's the first area that people lived. And what happened was they moved from West Loch along the ocean, and they built along the ocean and all the way to where we are here and all the way to Colina before they even went inland now. And they went all the way to Waianae Point. They did not build or move inland. They built along the shoreline.
So was Hawaiians present at that time they came or no?
Huh?
Was Hawaiians present at the time they came, or no? Meaning, when the Tahitians came, were there Hawaiians already here, or no?
Nobody.
Wow.
Yeah. We're talking
So
about
this
a
is
time
before us.
about 3,000 years prior. We're talking about 3,000 years. So we're talking about a long time ago. Okay? That's the time. Okay, I hate using dates, you know. The dates I'm sharing with you are estimated dates by Sam Kamakau. Okay? So I'm afraid to use dates. I cannot tell you that's the exact date, you know. I can tell you, I'm more comfortable saying around 500 AD, 1000 AD. I feel uncomfortable telling you prior to that. But the document is all about 3,000, 2,000 years ago. We're talking about this area here now. We're talking about a time when nobody moved inland. They only lived along the beach. Why? Fish. Fish. They had no idea what they could eat inland. Remember now, inland was nothing but forest. It wasn't until many, many, many years when the whole shoreline was occupied. Okay? And that's one of the things we talk about at the Heritage Park. People who were living along the shoreline, they would see people periodically coming out of the bushes. Okay? They would actually fight each other because they didn't know who this guy is in the bushes. Keep in mind, it's hard for us today because it's houses all over. Where we are today was hidden. You couldn't see this place. Okay? So that's the kind of period we're talking about, which is hard to understand. Okay? This is all from Sam Kamakau. Okay? And the people he had talked to around 1778 or prior to, who were living prior to 1778. Okay? So I just shared with you just several names now. My God. I just shared with you Pu'ukapule, the center of Kapolei, where the city got started. Just Makaya that is Kaupea, okay? Makaya that is Kanehili, which is Barber's Point. And Makaya that is Kualakai, the significance now. There's a whole lot to it, but just for our discussion, the significance of Kualakai. Prior to this time, nobody was living inland. Kualakai established populations. The trail that was built from the shoreline going inland established populations, Mauka, okay? Until it went up into the high grounds, Kunia, okay? They did not move inland. This was years later, after the shoreline was populated, where this trail we're talking about, the Kualakai Trail, okay, slowly, as the trail got established, people all went along the trail, okay? So this is a period now. And the time that they use in the documentation is around 1200 AD. So around 1200, 1300 AD. This is when people started moving inland. Prior to that, it was all along the shoreline. Tahitians. That's what it was, okay?
Is that the time before or after Pa'au, the arrival of Pa'au?
We don't know, yeah. Have no idea. When it comes to time, it's a struggle, okay? So that's why the times I share with you here, I feel a little comfortable, okay? So the time we're talking about right here, Kualakai, Kolina, this whole area, Pearl Harbor, that's around 1100, 400, okay? Okay? The park itself, the Heritage Park, Tahitian, a Tahitian site is around 12, 13, 1400, okay? That's the period we're talking about when you're talking about there. And then from that period, along Kualakai Trail, they went Mauka, all up into the mountains. Now, The significance of that is people did not live in the mountains. The mountains were for gods. People lived on the low ground, although they built trails up to higher elevations. They did not live up there. They lived down below. Okay? Okay, up to now. Oh, God. Any questions up to now? Okay.
When did the Marcasians come?
Asians?
No, the Marcasians, they came after the Tahitians, but then the people from the Micronesians, the Marcasians.
Yeah. In the archaeological surveys, they don't make a distinction between the different people from the south. So they just make reference to people from the south coming to this latitude, okay? Because there's no way really knowing it, you know what I mean? In the southern islands, they were all close together. We're isolated. We're out in the middle of nowhere, okay? So can you understand people living here during this time, realizing there's nothing but water? Who am I? What am I doing? Okay?
We were told that in the valleys, the Marcasian people, when they came, they settled in the valleys like Kunia. In Kunia, you got the valleys.
That's right.
And also in Makiki.
Yeah,
Makiki Round Top.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They settled Mauka subsequent to the period we're talking about. I'm talking about the shoreline period. The first places all the way around the island, not just over here now, all the way around the island was along the beaches. Why? Fish, crab, limo. Nothing up in the mountains. You see? That's all you got to understand. It's about food. It was about food. Nobody moved inland until many, 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 many years later. Okay, so these are the only 4 places we talked about: Pu'ukapale, Kaupe, Kanehili, and Kualakai. If we go Mauka, if we go in a Mauka direction, the next place is actually Hanalei. It's not Makakilo. Honouliuli is as you standing down, say along to the H1 freeway and you're looking Mauka. Honouliuli is the flat land as you're looking up Makakilo Drive. So today, that flat land would be the area where, what's the best way to describe it? It's actually just above the fire station, where the fire station is today. Above that is the area we're referring to as Honouliuli, okay? Honouliuli was named by, Theodore Kelsey. Oh, I don't want to get too deep into that. Theodore Kelsey lives in Waianae, okay? His family is actually from Europe. I'm going to go through this too fast. Originally from Europe, they ended up moving to the Big Island. His mom and dad died. He ended up being raised by a Hawaiian family. He speaks fluent Hawaiian. He has since passed away. He speaks fluent Hawaiian language. He was involved with other cultural Hawaiians and identifying cultural sites in different areas. He eventually ends up on the island of Oahu in Waianae. He ended up working with Keone Nunes. You folks know Keone Nunes? Yeah, so he ended up getting to know Keone Nunes. So what grew out of that, he found out that flat land was called Honouliuli. That name actually from him, from this guy, was the result of Honouliuli is, in Hawaiian culture, it's like an enclosure, Honouliuli Bay, okay? So Honouliuli is not a name that's actually given to just anything. It's given to a place that is defined as embracing, okay? So Honouliuli Makakilo is making reference to three pu'us. Okay? Pu'u Palailai, by the water park. Pu'u Kapolei, where we were just talking about. And Pu'u Makakilo. Okay? The name Makakilo is eventually given to from the contractors that built Makakilo. But the name anciently was Honouliuli. Okay? These three pools, Palailai, Makakilo, and Kapolei, is embracing the mountain. Okay? Honouliuli is to embrace, like Honouliuli Bay, hugging. Okay? So these three pu'us, Pu'u Kapolei, Pu'u Palailai by the water park, and Pu'u Makakilo, they're embracing Makakilo. That's where the name comes from, okay? Honouliuli is the name anciently of this area, okay? But we can continue calling it Makakilo. But that's how the name originally got started.
Do these pools still exist?
What's that?
Do these pools still exist?
Do they still do what?
Do these pools still exist until today?
Oh, yeah, they still do. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why Hawaiian people in this area were opposed to Pu'u Palailai serving as one garbage dump. I don't know if you're aware of this, for those people who lived here anciently, Hawaiians, when they found out they was going to turn that place into a dump, they got all upset, okay? Because the cultural significance, it was a sacred place, and here they would turn them into a trash pile, okay? So that would upset a whole bunch of people.
Now, Uncle, and I'm not sure, but I was trying to remember, but isn't there that street that runs, I don't know, way before any of those other houses was built up Makakilo?
Yeah.
Pa'alailai is the street, right?
Palailai, yeah.
I mean, I was trying to
Palailai is a road that goes around the backside.
Up, yeah, one of the first original streets, right? But
Yeah,
this
it goes on the slope of Palailai.
Pu'u Palailai.
Pu'u Palailai.
That's the original name.
That's the, yeah, okay.
Yeah, of the Pu'u.
I'm
Okay?
with you. I'm following.
Sorry for keep going back and forth, gang. Sorry. I got a feeling I'm not going to finish this. God, we can always do it again, you know. Okay, we're going Mauka. If you go Mauka from Honouliuli, you ended up going up into Palehua. Pa is an enclosure. Lehua is a warrior. So yeah, in ancient Hawaiian culture, Palehua is referred to as the place of the warriors. So there's a heiau up there that's referred to the Palehua heiau, that whole region. Historically, it's the information, when I say historic, I better make sure I get it clear. The name actually comes from, okay, what we've become aware of, which was shared, okay, was that it served as a place of warrior training, nako, fighting. So what it was is that Waianae, all of Waianae was a protected side of the island. So people who were in trouble elsewhere, they would go to Waianae on the other side of the mountain, okay? So this area here, the Palehua, further down the mountain, all the way to Kaina Point, was an area that protected people from Waianae, okay? Palehua, the enclosure of the warrior, historically is referred to as a school, okay? One of the school purposes was to train warriors. That information came from the Von Holt family. The Von Holt family had a house up above Palehua, further up the road. And they, what they did was that when that house was originally built, it was built by cowboys that chased cattle around that area. These are ancient cowboys now I'm talking about. They shared with the people that ended up living at this Von Holt home that heiau served as one school, okay? They did not call them one heiau, which is interesting. They never called them heiau. They referred to as a school for training, which makes sense. Pa, lehua, which makes absolute sense.
Is that
So-
the Lua training?
What's that?
Is that the Lua training?
Yeah, for Lua training.
Yeah, Lua training.
So what it was, so just Makaya that, I'm trying to go through this fast. Polly, who is up here? And then what you have is Makaiva, okay? Makaiva is making reference to eyes, Maka, of the warrior, okay? So what it was is that warriors trained up in Palihua. As you're driving on the H1 freeway from Makakilo, going towards Hale, the right-hand side is Makaiva, okay? So what, historically, I participated in an archaeological survey 30 years ago over there, and what we found was, if you're driving in the Waianae direction on the H1, and if you're looking Mauka, you see ridges. You see one ridge, valley, ridge, valley. On every ridge, at the point of every ridge was about maybe 100 yards away from the freeway. On every ridge had one enclosure. So in other words, an L-shaped enclosure. You familiar with that? What Hawaiians did, Hawaiians used those L-shaped enclosures to lay down and hide and make observations. So in that particular area, their job was to watch for intruders traveling along what we refer to as Farrington Highway that don't belong in Waianae. So they would make observations from those hillsides, and they would find a way they'll find a way to notify others along the route out to Waianae. The whole idea was to let Waianae people know there's intruders coming their way and let them deal with however they want to deal with it. There was the same situation on the Kaena Point side. I can't, by Makua, by where that military base, that whole area there, there's several heiaus over there. Those places served the same purpose. There were people whose job there was to prevent people coming from Wailua around Kaena Point and coming into. It's not that they were bad people, it's just that Waianae was protected. I don't know how else to say it.
Like a city of haven, like, yeah, a fortress of protection.
Yeah. It's just like today, you know? So if you know Hawaiian families that's been there for a long time, like the one I know is the Keelas. You folks know the Keelas in Waianae? They're very protective now. They have that same train of thought. This is my home. You don't belong here. Go back, okay? But you got to remember now, today we're only talking about the Keelas. Before, was all of Waianae was like that, okay? So Waianae was a protected place. So that's what we're talking about. So Palehua was a place of warrior training. What they did is that they set up instructors close to what we call the freeway today, was the trail before, making observations of intruders and finding a way to let Waianae people know. That's what we're talking about. That is a Palehua. That is a.
Why it was so protected?
Huh?
Can I ask why it was so protected?
Yeah.
Why was it so protected?
Yes. Yeah. You're asking me if
Yeah, I'm asking you why was it so protected? Why
Why
was
not?
it so protected?
Why not? Simply because during those days, Waianae was a place where if you were having a hard time elsewhere, whether on the the windward side, or even like the Wahiwa, you were having a hard time, and that if you wanted to live a normal, quiet life, you would find your way over the mountain. So you were protected. That's what it's all about. In ancient Hawaiian culture, that particular, the area idea was that if you wanted to live a good, quiet life, you deserved it, okay? If you go to the trouble of getting over that mountain and going on the other side, you deserve protection.
I'll go. It'll be
Yeah.
like a place of refuge.
What's that?
Is it like a place of refuge?
That's what it was.
Go to be
That's what it was. It was a place of refuge.
So talking about Makua,
Yeah,
I was told at one time that they didn't cross over the mountains. They went through the mountains
Yeah, yeah.
to get from point A to point B.
yeah,
And until the city had sealed up the interior part of the
yeah,
cave.
yeah.
And Makua Cave, oh my gosh, it gives me heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go.
When I say they went over Waianae Mountain,
Yeah.
there's actually two ways they used to use. One was Pohakea. What's the name of that trail? I mean that Pohakea. Is that Pohakea? There's two gaps in a mountain. One up by Schofield. There's a gap in the mountain. Kole Pass. Kole Pass was the trail into Waianae and out. Okay. And then there's another trail from another side, closer to Makakilo. So that's how most people got in there, by way of the trail. I don't want to make it sound like they would climb the mountain peak. No. They chose trails to get in there. And it was protected. Kole Pass was protected on the Waianae side. This other trail that I'm thinking about, same way. They were protected on the Waianae side. So anybody who don't belong in Waianae, they were prevented from coming into Waianae. Any other questions?
So when you guys went into Kanehili in
Yeah.
Kailailoa in 2006, I think it was. So you've seen all the sinkholes.
Yeah.
And then there's green tea leaves coming out.
Yeah.
Where does that water come from?
All that water is actually coming from. Today there's no water. Today there's only water when it rains. When it's rains, then you're going to find water in sinkholes. But anciently, all this water used to come from up in the mountains. And it's really hard to understand. We get 12 rivers in all of Ewa. We get 12 Ahupua'as. Every Ahupua'a has a river, okay? Every one of them anciently had water, okay? And that's the reason why Campbell Estate and the Dole decided to build sugar and pineapple, because of the water. Today, every river is dry, okay? Everyone. We got no water. Our water all comes from
The windward side.
the other side of the island. The problem now is the other side of the island don't want to give us any more water. So right now, I don't know what bottled water supply is thinking of doing. It's a serious problem, gang. We got nothing. Even Waianae's water all come from our area.
So before the water,
There is no water.
before the water did go down there, it came from the mountains, right?
Huh?
The water came from the mountains.
From the mountains,
And
yeah.
it flowed through us.
The main route was actually by Mauka of Wahiwa. I forgot the name of that valley. There's a huge valley. On the other side is Waihole. Waihole, Waikani? Yeah. So the water came through Waikani, through this gap by Wahiwa. And that gap fed all the major rivers. And all the major rivers is what fed all of this whole region, okay? I don't know what we're going to do, you know. It's the bottled water supply doesn't try to make it a big deal. They're trying to keep it as,
So are they the ones, they block the water, or does the water just no longer exist?
no, in the outside, no more nothing. For drinking, we're talking about substantial water. Okay, the reason why all construction in this area went stop, I don't know if you notice it. A lot of the construction went stop because in order to build one home, you got to show if you can provide water for that house. Contractors cannot do that today. They cannot find the water to support construction. So if you notice we get plenty open property on the other side of the city, all abandoned properties there. They wanted to build homes throughout that whole area, supposed to have houses. They cannot. Why? No more water. It's a serious matter. I don't know what's going to happen later on. I'm going to probably be dead by that time, so I don't worry about it, man. Somebody else going to have to worry about that.
In Waianae Valley,
Huh?
Waianae Valley, where Eric Innocem have their lo'i
Yeah,
up there, there's water
yeah.
up there. But I think, there's water up there because it's coming down from Mount Ka'ala.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's water up there.
yeah, yeah. There is water in Waianae, but it's not as much as used to be. You can just go to, if you ever have a chance to talk to Bill Island. Yeah, Bill Island is from the area of Makoa. You talk to them guys about the only place that really has substantial water today is actually Makoa. Most every place else in Waianae, not that much, okay? I'm talking about river water now, okay? I'm not talking about pipe water, river water. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, I just shared a little with you regarding Makaiva. On the way, it was served as a place to, that stretch between Pu'upalailai and Honokai Hale, that area on the Mauka side, anciently served as a way to protect people in Waianae, to prevent intruders from actually traveling in that direction. So this is the area we're talking about right now. Pukawa is the next, as you traveling from along H1, Farrington Highway, the water park, Pu'upalailai, Makaiva, Pukawa. The word Pukawa makes reference to a place of warrior training. So it's referred to, again, a place to teach fighters to fight. That whole stretch from the water park all the way to Waimanalo Gulch, that whole stretch anciently served as a place for training fighters, okay? Their job was to take care of everybody in Waianae, okay? And to let them know that there's people coming that don't belong in that area. And also making observations of any canoes traveling in the Waianae direction along the shoreline, okay? That whole area by Koalina, today I don't think so, but when my father was alive, my father was a diver, so he spent a lot of time in the water. So he spent a lot of time diving in the area by Waimanalo Gulch, kind of in the Waianae side of Waimanalo Gulch. And that he never dived in the area where Koalina is today. That whole area that we refer to as Koalina, to the Deep Draft Harbor, that whole area there was kapu. I don't know if anybody talked to you about that. That whole area, no one was allowed to go in the water because of the protections afforded that particular area. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. So Waianae was very protected now, okay? As compared to things today. Waianae was not one of those places. You did not want to get caught if you don't belong there, okay? So that's Pukawa. Today we refer to Waimanalo Gulch as just a gulch today. Waimanalo Gulch actually extended all the way up to Koalina. Koalina was Waimanalo too, okay? So in ancient Hawaiian culture. Then Piliokahi, just beyond Waimanalo Gulch, was the beginning of Waianae. Oh my God. Okay, as you're traveling on the H1 today, used to be Farrington, but today, if you're traveling on the H1 freeway and you're traveling in the Honolulu direction on the H1 freeway, you pass several very important places. One is called Ke'one'ai. Ke'one'ai was actually a village in the area roughly now, gang, at the intersection of what we refer to as Farrington Highway today, and actually the road where the train stations are located was at that intersection there. That's why they named that first train station the Ke'one'ai, or Ke'one'ula, is the reason why they named that particular station by that particular name. So then as you travel from along Farrington Highway and you're traveling in the Waipahu direction, there's several small places that you pass by. But one of the most significant places is actually Po'ohilo. Po'ohilo is actually roughly just before you get to Waipahu town along Farrington Highway, okay? The significance of Po'ohilo in ancient Hawaiian culture is the island of Oahu. This is long. Let me try to make this as quickly as I can. The island of Oahu historically was always under assault from outside islands, always, generations and generations, simply because they came by way of Pearl Harbor and was easy to get into Pearl Harbor, into the different locks, and finding your way up into different areas, to different villages. So that whole stretch was always a place that was under assault. Po'ohilo was one of those places. And what it was is that, I can't remember the exact time, but I think it was around maybe, let me try to get close to the date. I want to make sure. I would say roughly around maybe 1000 AD. What it was is that the island of Oahu was assaulted by the Big Island, and they came with some thousands of people, and they actually they parked their canoes in the area of West Loch, where the golf course is located. And that they came here to find the chief of the island of Oahu, which at that time was up at Lehui, which Lehui is the area today we refer to as Schofield Barracks, okay? So they went up there to look for the chief, and they couldn't find him. But what happened is that they went up into the area that was Waipahu. We're talking about thousands of people now, gang, okay? Thousands of people from the outside islands, anchoring their canoes at West Loch, traveling around Kunia Road, all the way up into the area of, we refer to as Lehui, Schofield, looking for the chiefs that Lehui Schofield Barracks anciently was a chief residence. So the island of Oahu, chiefly residents were. During this period, it changed depending who was the ruling mo'i. During this time, Waikiki was always considered a place for ruling chiefs. Another place was Lepau. Lepau was West Loch in this area. And the next one was actually all the way up in Lehui, the area of Schofield Barracks. So they came to the island of Oahu in search of conquering the island of Oahu by seeking out the chief of the Oahu who resided up in Lehui. They didn't find him, but they ended up circling around. They came back down in the area we refer to as Mililani. The first battle occurred at Waikakalau. And the guys from the Big Island, the guys from Oahu, suffered a major defeat. That area anciently was known by the name of Punalu'u. Punalu'u was the ancient Hawaiian name for the area we refer to today as Mililani. So that's where the first battle took place. The Oahu chiefs took a licking. They came down to Kipapa Gulch, took a big licking over there. They came all the way down to the area where we refer to as Waiau, by where the Leeward Community College is. And they ended up killing one of the three major chiefs. His name was Hilo. What they did, they would cut his head off. They would stick him in a pole, and they would place him in the area where the canoes would land down in the area of Waipahu, okay? So that is a story that is placed that you can find even on the computer. If you look up Pono'i, you're going to find that particular story. Again, the significance of that is that the name, the Hawaiian name for that area, at the intersection of where Farrington Highway and that Maukamakai Road. I tell you, man, when you get old, the brain just disappears.
Wow, you're doing good, trust me.
God, man.
So you recorded.
Yeah.
I way younger than you and I.
God, man, I don't believe it.
This is Kamehameha.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
This is Kamehameha. This is Kamehameha's warriors when they came and
No,
invaded.
this is way before.
Way before.
Yeah, this is before Kamehameha. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And how do we buy that?
Okay, you know what? We'll just call it.
Yeah, how do we buy that?
Unless you have, that's a cultural coupling. You can buy that book from the best way. Just go to cultural. If you're interested, just let me know how. Then I'll get in touch with the Kalailo Heritage Board of Directors. They sell the book. I think it's $25. $25. So I gave the rights of the sale to them.
You can get it on Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon, you can get them too. Yeah. Yeah, you can get it from Amazon. So if you go to Amazon, you can buy that book. So the stories in there are all the stuff that I wanted to share here. Okay? So in case you're interested, you can get it from Amazon, or you can get in touch with me and I'll refer you to the president of the Kalailo Heritage Park. They have access and they sell it also, okay, the board. I gave access of the book to them, so. You know what? Why don't we just call it quits?
Okay.
Anybody have any more questions before we all take off?
I do. I'm a resident here at Kanehili. What kind of sinkholes do we have right here?
In this area right here,
This area, the whole thing?
I'm not aware of any today. I know of one, I don't know if it's still there, in the area of, actually several, in the area, as you're driving in the Malka direction along Colsey Road, along Fort Barrett, after you pass Pu'u'okapale, after you pass them, on the right-hand side, there's that Hawaiian Tel building right there. On the property inside there, there's several sinkholes. But they partially filled in, from all the construction that's been going on. They're filled up, but when you look inside, you can see the dirt in the bottom. Yeah. But if you want to see sinkholes that's not filled in, come to the Kalailo Heritage Park. We got them all. We got them even with tea leaves growing out of them. Yeah. And the tea leaves were actually planted by those people that originally came to the Hawaiian Islands. So in the areas along the shoreline where they settled, what they did is they planted tea leaves in those areas because anciently tea leaves played a big part, well, like lau lau, right? So they used it. They used it a lot. So, Kumujan, Kaimikawa. Yeah.
Family back there.
Oh, you related to him?
Sister, brother.
Oh, no kidding, Kumujan. He was an awesome friend of mine. He participated in a lot of the stuff that I did. He taught me a lot of Hawaiian stuff. You know Palehua? What's that? You his brother?
Brother and sister.
No kidding. Yeah. Yeah. He was a big loss. You know when he died? Major loss. Even to me, because how he helped out.
He did the hula mound over here in Kapolei.
What's that?
He did the hula mound.
Yeah. So he was the one that actually, he identified, he named it, and he designed it. Well, I don't know how many people realize that, but it's two mounds there. One is a hula and one is for people. He was the one that decided that, Kumujan. He was an awesome guy, awesome. He did the first makahiki at the Fort Island. He was the guy that did them.
The hula mound, can you share with them about the heiau that is in there?
Which one?
What Hale is that by the hula mound.
Oh, Pu'ukapule.
Yeah. Can you share the story about the keikis?
About the what?
Keikis,
Keikis.
the kids. The kids. Remember so you know the hill I'm talking about by the skate ring, right?
Yeah, so when you go in the gate, the archery range.
Yes.
Kids.
The kids, remember the security guard was working in the state office, and then they would come and ask the security, why are they running around the building? Because they saw all the they was chasing all the keikis.
Oh, you're talking about the front area when you go in on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. We used to be able, we're talking about the firing range, you know, the archers.
Now, is that-
Before
is that
before the
one-
archery range went there, before the archers got there, we had access to that place. Those of us that was working in the Hula Mound area, Kumujan, we actually had access to that place there before the archers. When we were there, that's when the archers got started, once we got started. So in the beginning, we were able to go there. And one of the things that we're just talking about is you walk in there, all the Hawaiian stuffs are actually further on the Makai side. But in the front area, there's a big flat grass area. And that's an area where, at least when we were first there, when we first went there, a lot of kids were actually using that particular place for doing Hawaiian things. That's the place you're talking about? Yeah. So that's and they spent time on that flat area without having been there. It's really hard to explain. You walk in the gate, grass area on the left, and as you go further in the direction of where Fort Barrett is located, it actually drops down in that area, and then there's several cultural sites in that particular area. They're mainly rock walls. There's one enclosure, but it's really hard to get a sense of how big the enclosures are because much of it has been damaged there. But that's an area where when we first got started, when we had a lot of kids going in there with us, and it was involved with us in cleaning that area up. Is that the stuff you're talking about? They were helping us clean the property. So we had a lot of, in the beginning, when you do volunteer work, it's easy to get kids to volunteer than to get adults. So every structure or every project I've been involved in, most every one of them got started with kids, not adults. The adults would show up after the kids would clean the whole place up. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody, any questions, anything else?
When is the next story
What's that?
time? When is your next story time?
Huh?
When is your next story time? Like tonight, when is the next one?
We can do it every week. We can do it again in September. September is wide open. I do this all the time, So for me, it's not a big deal. So whatever works for your schedule. So all you got to do is let me know. Let me know when you want. Sorry for not finishing, gang.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Yes.
Yeah,
Talking about your
the book.
I'm excited because now the way he playing, I'm a windward girl. I come from that side. So my grandfather then from the sugarcane days, ever.
Yeah.
But that's my Portuguese side. And so as I'm listening, I'm like, oh, now makes sense. Oh, now makes sense about all kinds of different things now. All the way up to the kind of point. Because my dad used to all the time come down on this side. And now, but even when you're sharing, even the trails and things, my nana, I was like, oh, God, it makes sense. Thank you very much.
oh, that's another
Okay, gang, if there's no questions, I guess we can all get together later on and find another date, another week we can get together. Okay, all right, good.